Hello once again, everybody. Rick Baker from Guitar Stories USA with another great interview. This time we're going to speak with Vic DePra. Vic is a preeminent expert, some would say the expert, on Gibson Les Paul bursts. Those beautiful 1958, 59, and 1960 Les Pauls that all collectors covet, all musicians want to own and play, and are quite simply and possibly the finest electric guitar ever made. Well, Vic, hey, it's really good to meet you. And
you too, Rick. Thanks so much for for sending the email over, and we can put this together. It'd be fun.
Yeah, man. I love your books, and I was really kind of checking things out, and I guess this is your third book, right?
Well, actually, this is my fifth book, I guess you'd
Your
say.
fifth.
There was Burst, which came out in around 95, I believe. Then a terrible book called Sunburst Alley, just when they were starting to do digital photography,
Uh-huh.
And one of the first digital books they tried to do, and it just came out terrible. But it's nonetheless, right now, it's a collector's item, of all books, Then Burst was redone again in, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, And then Burst Believers 1 came out, and this one here is just over the top. This one's really doing well, as did Burst Believers 1 too,
Yeah. And Vic, I got to ask you. I've talked to a lot of people, and we're just kind of getting to know each other. But man, everybody says you are the guy. You are the Burst expert, the Les Paul expert, man. And what inspired you to write these books?
Well, to tell you the truth, the first time I did, I was approached by Jay Scott, because he had a chance. He did the Gretsch book at the time, which was a really good book,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, why don't you get into this? And I said, Jay, I don't know anything about it. And he says, well, I'll help you with it, So Jay and I did the book Burst, which was out, like I said, around in 95 or so, maybe 93 even, I'm not real sure. And, that, had some success. Then we did the Sunburst Alley, which I said was a terrible book, but, so it kind of set me up for these two books, which I just did, Burst Believers 1 and 2, and I just wanted to do something on my own rather than do it with somebody and have a little bit more control of it,
Oh, absolutely. And, I understand that they used your 59. I guess Gibson's made a couple models with you now.
Yes. The cover of the book Burst Believers 1, that's actually my guitar. They did that, as the Believer Burst, and it was released around this time last year, like around Christmas time.
Yeah, and a lot of people say the Collector's Choice number 9 that was modeled after your Burst is maybe the nicest Burst ever.
Well, that's what a lot of people have said that. Yeah, I mean that's very flattering. I mean, it's such a great guitar, and Gibson did a heck of a job. I've seen some of the examples; they were beautiful.
Yeah.
Custom Shop really nailed it. As far as the little nuances on the guitar, the wear marks and everything, they did a great job on it. Some of the tops were just incredible. That I've gotten messages on Facebook, from all over the world, from Tokyo and Italy and France. I mean, some guys got some beautiful guitars.
Oh yeah, and they're just so beautiful. And I've been a player since the late '70s, and I've got an '03 Burst Standard that I absolutely love. And I'm just like you. I'm a maniac for these things. And
yeah, me too.
It's just you either are or you aren't. And what I was curious about, in terms of the way you look at things, is what do you think makes makes the original 58, 59, 60 Bursts so good?
Well, I mean, I think that whole era of guitars were great guitars. It just so happened that the players at the time, were using this guitar and made it what it was to be, and made that sound. I think without that, we would all still been searching around looking for something. Who knows? Could have been the Strat or the Tele that produced these classic sounds that we know now, but it seems like the English guys really had it together first, and they plugged them into a Marshall amp. It really created a raw sound that is still desired, you know.
Now, I understand the number 1712 is very significant.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The number 1712.
Well, that's supposedly the number of bursts that were made. Is that what you're getting at? Right
Yeah,
now?
Yeah.
You know what? That could possibly be, but you know, sometimes I got to wonder if gold tops weren't included in that, as was a few of the SG Les Pauls in late '60 too. You know?
Okay. So I've read a piece you did quite a while back for Vintage Guitar, and I think they quoted you as saying that you kind of thought that the wood was better, or they dried it differently, or.
Well, you know, I think probably all the woods were better back then because, you know, I mean, right now, my God, there's just so many guitars being made and they're produced and shipped all over the world, you know. And there wasn't that many guitars being made then, you know, not anywhere near the production levels of today. So I think, you know, yeah, they just had better wood to work with then, you know?
Yeah. They were doing something right up in Kalamazoo, I guess. Right?
Yeah, they sure were, weren't they? But it's just amazing, all of the fine points from 52 to 1958 that they changed on that guitar. It's just incredible, you know?
Yeah.
The guitar went through a complete metamorphosis in its short lifespan, you know?
Well, and it's what always kind of fascinates me is the fact that you know, that Gibson had to discontinue them.
Right.
You know, it seems incredible to us now that that they would have done that, but I guess what the sales just weren't there.
Yeah, there's just no interest in it. Then you had, you know, rock and roll was coming in, and the Strat was a pretty sexy looking guitar. You know, and whereas Gibson, even when I was a kid, always it's like a stuffed shirt kind of company. You know, I want a Mosrite guitar, you know, like the Ventures have. You know,
Yeah.
it looked cooler. You know.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, and some things I've read, you know, one of the things that kind of led to, you know, Clapton and some of those guys, Keith Richards, really bringing back the popularity of the burst was, and a lot of people don't know this, is that England had an embargo. Until 1959 on imports of products like that from all dollar-based countries. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but that's what...
A little bit, yeah.
They really couldn't get them, and it wasn't until some used 59 started showing up in a few stores in London that they kind of caught on from there, I guess.
Right. But that's all they really had. You know, they didn't have a lot of choices to make back then, and Gibson was probably shipping in those guitars because they couldn't sell them here.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, hence the discontinuation of the line.
And what they did with that guitar, and, you know, my God, in the next 6 years, it's history, you know?
Yeah. Well,
and, you know, but I think today, now, I think the burst is... stood the test of time, and it doesn't matter who plays the guitar anymore. I think the guitar is just an iconic guitar on its own right now. It doesn't need a guy to back it up saying, hey, I'm using a burst to make it popular or worth more money now, you know?
Right.
I think the burst is just standing on its own merit right now.
Well, and I know, you know, when I was growing up, you know, it was Jimmy Page. I mean...
Oh, absolutely. You know, even though Bloomfield and, you know, Clapton, Keith Richards, and even in the States was John Sebastian, first one to have one here. But it's Page that's probably sold more Sunburst Les Pauls than any other guy there is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I know growing up, I mean, that was it. I mean, that was like, wow, I got to have one of those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was my whole, I mean, I knew he had two growing up as a kid, so, oh, man, I got to have two. You know, my whole thing just started out as a hippie thing, you know, just digging the guys back then, and everybody said, oh, you had so much insight. I didn't have any freaking insight at all, man. You know, I just love guitars, you know? That's all.
Well, and I heard somewhere that I guess a girlfriend of yours bought you your first one. Is that true?
First one, yeah, from Guitar Trader out in Red Bank, New Jersey. That's when Tim Cummer used to work there, and Dave DeForest.
Yeah, I know Tim. He's down in Miami now these days.
Sure is, great guy, yeah.
On the beach. And well, a pretty nice girlfriend picked you up a burst there, in I guess what, the early '70s or something, right?
Yeah, like around 72, I believe, something like that.
And,
Yeah.
and then I heard something about you. You actually took out a loan and got your next one or something and borrowed 16.
You know what? People thought I was crazy. I mean, I lost $1,600 for a used, dinged up, beat up guitar. And man, I thought maybe I am crazy. Man, what's wrong with me? But I just had to have two of them. And this one was a real nice Flamey '59 that a friend of mine from Wheeling, West Virginia had.
Mm-hmm.
That he bought out of Akron, Ohio at the time.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
If you ever get up this way, look me up, man. I'd gladly take you over to the house, show you some guitars. If you'd like to photograph some of the guitars, you're more than welcome.
Oh, that would be awesome, Vic. I would love that. I would love that. Hey, tell me about your store. Tell me about the Guitar Gallery.
Guitar Gallery's been in business for 30 years,
Wow.
And besides being, the regular stuff like everybody else, Martin, Gibson, Fender, Rickenbacker, Gretsch, we try to stick with the classic lines,
Mm-hmm.
and Marshall, naturally. But I think we're more well known for me doing runs of Les Pauls and attaching them to an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my first run I did was in 2009 with Rick Nielsen.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Then I did a run in 2011 with Brian Ray from Paul McCartney.
Yeah, Paul McCartney, sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in 2012, I did a run with Mick Ralphs from Bad.
Yeah, Bad Company, right.
And then this past year, 2014, I did a run with Stevie Daconet from Buck Cherry.
Well, now tell my readers what you mean by doing a run. What do you do exactly?
I would do a run of anywhere from 25 to 30 guitars and make them to my specs. The first was called a Bourbon Fade with Rick Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a dark bourbon color that I picked the tops out for, exposed the lead pickup on them. In 2009 was the first year they made some incredible changes on the guitars, Then in 2011, I did a guitar called the Caramel Fade with Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a caramel-looking burst that faded a little bit, And then I did a run with Mick Ralphs called the Shadows of '59, which underneath the pick guard had the fadings of a faded-out burst with the shadows under the guard and the poker chip and a rhythm pickup ring. And then with Stevie, I did a run called Vic's Old School '59. And what's really funny about that guitar is basically it's a guitar with issues that a lot of guys might not want to buy in the vintage world, but everybody scooped them up as soon as they came out. They had Grover tuners, very heavily aged, removed Bigsby holes on the face and on the butt end of the guitar, an exposed zebra and a double black in the rhythm. I mean, exposed zebra in the rhythm and a double black in the lead, like Jeff Beck's burst,
Mm-hmm.
Just like a very worn and torn burst, like, just like an old school '59 you would have seen on stage in the '70s,
Wow.
And that went over just incredibly well.
Well, and tell me how that works, Vic. I mean, do you do the design and Gibson custom shop manufacturers, or do you actually do them?
Well, I mean, not the design. The design is always there. It's a Les Paul design.
Well, sure, yeah.
But I'll come up with, I want, crescent armware, or I want the Bigsby holes in it. I want the shadows under the guard. Things that they're not accustomed to doing. I want the imprint of the Cluson still on the back, but with Grover tuners. I want pecking through it, and like I said, Custom Shop did a great job on it.
Well, and tell me about the process on this Collector's Choice number 9. I hear that they actually, use like MRIs to analyze every inch of these guitars when they.
Well, they do actually, yeah. They had the guitar probably for about 4 or 5 months down there, and took it apart and measured all the specs, neck size of it, and everything, and they do a great job. They really do. I think Custom Shop, what they've been doing, especially in the last couple of years, they're building amazing guitars. Their aging process has gotten much better. Doing great stuff. They got a good crew down there.
Yeah.
Rick and Bar,
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's incredible. What are we up to on the Collector's Choice now? What number, I think?
I don't even know. They're not even going in succession. They're all over the place. So it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was curious if you had any cool guitar stories you want to share, either with acquisitions and ways you've acquired certain guitars over the years.
The one that, for me, my naturally getting your first one is always what starts the junkie process going,
Yeah.
But me getting the Believer Burst was a big guitar for me to get. I missed that guitar years ago. It was for sale at a place called California Guitar, a shop owned by Frank Lucido at the time. Mm-hmm. It had some amazing inventory. And the guitar was there, and it got sold. And, I didn't hear about it for a while. Then I found out the guitar went to Chicago, and a collector had it there, who eventually then consigned it to George Gruen Guitars in 1985. And they had it on their list for like $10,000. And man, I'm telling you, Rick, in 1985, $10,000 was a pile of money,
Sure, yeah.
Oh, my God, and I couldn't come up with it again. And then the guitar was sold to a collector in Denmark. And there it sat for years and years. And I remember talking to a gentleman that worked at Gruen's at the time. I said, man, is there any way we can track this guitar down? So let me look through some old records, and he found where the guitar was. And I had some collector friends that were dealing guitars in Europe at the time to try to find the guitar, but the guy was just he knew what he had, and anytime somebody would call, they'd just hang up on him. He wouldn't even talk to him. And so eventually, what happened was, talk about a full circle of events. One day, this is when Christy Carter was working for Gruen's. This is she's probably about 7-8 years ago now. She gives me a call and says, Vic, that guitar that you've been looking for, I think we're getting it back. The owner's name was Sven, S-V-E-N. Had passed away, and his wife is going to consign his whole collection to us, which included like a bunch of SG Les Pauls and a few other things, but that burst was included. I didn't even need to ask her the price, nothing. I said, Christy, I'll take it.
Wow.
She goes, well, we don't even know. I said, I'll take it. I want that guitar. So I moved with friends, sold a few things, was able to get that guitar.
Wow. And so that's the Believer Burst.
That's the Believer Burst, yeah, and that's the one that's on the cover of Burst Believers 1.
Wow.
And what's really nice is, as of yesterday, Burst Believers 1 was number 1 in Japan, and Burst Believers 2 was number 2 in Japan.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so, I'm very proud of that,
Oh, yeah. And you should be, Vic. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's, I can tell you're passionate. And, I was talking to Tom Guerra last night, and,
great guy. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Great guy. And, and I said, the thing I sense about Vic and is, there are people who write these books, and then there are people who have to write these books, and you could just feel the passion as to why you would write these books. And it's because you're a collector, you're a player, and from everyone I've talked to, you're the guy. You know everything about these guitars, and you're totally in love with them, and I think that's great. That's
thank you, Rick. Thanks. I guess my passion does show, and it's a shame. I can't remember what I ate for lunch, but I can freaking remember serial numbers of bursts that I used to own, So.
That's awesome. And
thanks so much for letting me be part of this. But where do you have this at? Where's Guitar Stores USA? Is this something that's an online thing?
Yeah. You can go to GuitarStoriesUSA.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and can't wait to meet you in person, Vic. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
I'd love to meet you. Like I said, Rick, if you get up this way, you're visiting family. Please stop. Please give me a call.
I definitely will. Definitely. Cool.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Rick.
Okay, Vic. Thanks a lot, man.